homosexuality is found in almost all the species, but homophobia is found only in one. This seems very unnatural, right? Whereas having a homosexual orientation is not unnatural. But our society follows this preconceived notion that being a gay, lesbian, or transgender is some kind of illness or a disease which needs to be cured. Because of such society, people belonging to LGBTQ plus community are forced to live in a closet. Because if they come out of it and publicly express their sexual orientation or gender identity, they will have to suffer. But this is not the end of the story. If even one single step is taken in the way to support this community, they will get confidence to stand on their own and live their life freely. Violations of human rights of this community have been a critical worldwide issue, and that is why today I am going to speak on how the international law can work to safeguard the human rights of LGBTQ plus community. Now, first of all, let's have a look at the human rights which we are entitled to without any discrimination. Some of the examples of these human rights are right to social security, right to education, right to privacy, right to life, equality before law. Now, let's move on to the real world, where people who belong to LGBTQ plus community have a fear to live in unaccepting, homophobic, intolerant, and transphobic society in their mind. Here, I would like to tell you all that the opening words of Universal Declaration of Human Rights are, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Moreover, there is no exception to it which can allow some states to discriminate against people based on any aspect and violate or abuse their human rights through any legislation or any rules and guidelines. Not only this, but it has clearly mentioned that sexual orientation or gender identity are strictly prohibited grounds of discrimination under international human rights law. But now the question comes in front of us that where are the human rights of this community? This community has to suffer on daily basis. Their rights are violated and they are discriminated in such a way that they are at high risk of committing suicides and suffering from physical trauma or mental depression. Just a moment ago, we saw some examples of human rights. The right to no discrimination is the most basic right amongst them. But this community has to face discriminatory treatment in schools, workplaces, and also at their homes, which is known to be the safest place to anybody. Some countries prohibit portrayals of abnormal sexual lifestyles or behavior, which includes homosexuality according to them. There are some laws which ban dissemination of information related to LGBTQ community. The next right we have is right to no torture and inhuman treatment. But this community is subjected to violent attacks, aggressive verbal abuse, physical and mental assault, kidnapping, abduction, harassment, rape, and so on. Another right we have is equal before the law and no unfair detainment. And even this is not the reality for this community. Because even today, some laws criminalize consensual same-sex relationships. These laws are often used to show fear or threat to the arrest or prosecution. Hence, the international law is the only tool left for the LGBTQ people to seek justice and to claim all the human rights entitled to them naturally. As we say that education is the strongest tool to change the world, it should be used here effectively to prevent discrimination and stigmatization of LGBTQ people. Now, the society discriminates these people because of their sexual orientation or gender identity, as they do not have proper knowledge about homosexuality. Thus, people have to be taught that homosexuality is nothing but just a natural thing. Even WHO and Indian Psychiatrist Association has declared that homosexuality is not an illness or a disease. Even there are traces about it in history. For example, Khajuraho temple depicts some sculptures related to homosexuality, and Kama Sutra also mentions it in its text. By teaching this and making people aware about it, the misconception and preconceived notion that society has must be demolished, and the acceptance instead of ignorance must be taught to the society to change its attitude. Next, we have to make people understand the need to identify one's identity in all the aspects and respect it regardless of what it is. These institutions have to be established to do the counseling of people who have fear to disclose their identity by coming out of closet so that they do not feel left out. Apart from this, the most important thing I would like to mention here is about Stonewall Riot. Unfortunately, no educational institution has included this in their curriculum, even if it is the most important event which led to gay liberation. Also, apart from formal education, movies like Aligarh, Pink Mirror, Fire, or books like The Boyfriend, Criminal Love must be promoted in order to spread awareness about LGBTQ plus community. The next aspect is through legislation. The foremost step which should be taken by legislation is that it should repeal the laws which criminalize homosexuality in all the countries. Recently, India in 2018 ruled out Section 377 of IPC, which prohibited consensual same-sex relationship after the lot of efforts taken by LGBTQ community. Also, Angola's parliament removed the vices against nature provision from its penal codes. But international law, through various measures, has to ensure that the act of homosexuality is not criminalized even in one single country. The international law has to look into the matter of sexual violence and has to ensure that all the countries have gender neutral rape laws, unlike in India, where the definition of rape includes only the rape by men against women. It also has to ensure that people are not being arrested just because of their sexual orientation or gender identity. The last but very important aspect is about public policies. Apart from establishing various legislative provisions, it's very important to frame public policies for betterment of sexual minorities by considering all the categories in LGBTQ plus community in order to change the societal attitude and dismantle the status quo. So here I would like to conclude by saying that it's not necessary to be a gay to be a supporter. Instead, you just have to be a human. So I hope that we all will come up and support this community to claim their space in the world. Thank you.